Alright, man, peace. So for many of you brothers who've been on my channel for a while, you know that I have been following the Colin Kaepernick narrative for the last 3 years now. And it seems as though the storyline has taken another turn, has gone on to another phase. And that's a stage that I've already predicted in many of the videos preceding this emergence in the storyline. That being that I've been telling you brothers for a while that eventually Nike was going to start their own Colin Kaepernick line of shoes or clothing, apparel per se, because the whole point is to market wokeism. A lot of cats might say, well, companies are going broke when they go woke. Nike seems to understand that there is a niche, especially amongst liberal blacks, that they can tap into, and the loss in revenue is relatively negligible. And this is something that I'm going to be touching on in other videos, especially pertaining to Disney. Disney and Nike are probably the two most culturally Marxist entertainment brands out there. And I consider Nike an entertainment brand because they're basically involved in sports apparel. But I just want to say that over the course of this video, especially in the epilogue, we're going to be addressing many of the subliminal aspects of this latest occurrence or this latest turn in the Kaepernick storyline. Because most of these television shows, like this one right here, Speak for Yourself or First Take or Undisputed, they only have the ability to speak on the subliminal aspect or the wherewithal to speak on the subliminal aspect, because if they delve into the subliminal, or dare I say the esoteric or the occultic, they'll get taken off of the airwaves. I'm not quite sure if any of these cats really understand what's going on with Kaepernick and Nike on that level, but that's why I make these videos, because a lot of this is just fluff fed for the masses. Colin has a new Nike Air Force One and the motto is Stand for 7. And people believe that it's talking about Kaepernick's number. I'll be addressing a lot of these components once again in the epilogue, because every once in a while I'll have a cat email me or send me a photo of Kevin Durant deciding to change his number to number 7 and things of that nature. Brothers, it's because all of these top shelf athletes are immersing themselves in Hermeticism or Gnosticism, which basically is just a very kind way of calling them Kabbalists. They're heavily interested in the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system and the power that they believe is going to be granted unto them for immersing themselves in these ideologies. Many of them are introduced to these concepts through their agents, who tend to be so-called Jewish. Some of them are introduced to these concepts by fellow teammates or superstars, or maybe some Hollywood weirdo friends or acquaintances that they've met along the way. Some of them were raised up in the programming, and certain totems like the Tree of Life or other aspects of Kabbalah are embedded within many of their altars or subaltars, and they emerge eventually over the course of their careers. We also see this with Antonio Brown, or we're going to see this in the video that I'm going to make on Antonio Brown. My point is this: the Colin Kaepernick credo, or the new motto for his shoe line, the Air Force One that's being released through Nike, is Rise for 7 or Stand for 7. It's not in reference to his number or his playing career. It's in reference to the mother goddess, or as they call her in Kabbalah, Shekinah, or the quote-unquote Holy Spirit from the Kabbalistic perspective. The number 7 is also in reference to Saturn, the Father God. I'm going to go about proving this to you brothers, or showing this to you to the best of my ability in the epilogue of this video. But this is going to be the background in which we address the subliminal perspective of what's going on with Kaepernick, Nike, and the new shoe. So, of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
All right, welcome back to Speak for Yourself, presented by Hyundai. Whitlock and Wally, LeVar Arrington, and TJ Husmanzada are back. Let's move to Colin Kaepernick, who still isn't any closer to realizing his dream of returning to the NFL.
Brothers, please understand that in many of these images, the reason why they use the black and white is because that's supposed to represent the subject in an inert state. For example, if you ever see the film The Wizard of Oz, there's a reason why Dorothy starts off in Kansas and it's in black and white. But when she goes to Oz, it's in color because she's been illuminated. She's passed over the Rainbow Bridge through her third eye, or through the Sirius Star into Oz or Wonderland or what have you. Or as I call Wakanda, the so-called black version of Oz or Wonderland. That's what that's supposed to represent. Colin Kaepernick is an asset. His handler is Ness Nitty.
But it looks like the former quarterback has still somehow managed to have a Merry Christmas anyway.
And we see the Saturnian themes of black and white.
with his new signature shoe from Nike reportedly selling out just minutes after it was released yesterday. All right, the question here is, are the new Kaepernick shoes, Nike signature shoes, is this a good look for Colin Kaepernick?
It's a great look for Colin Kaepernick. How could it be a bad look? He's going to make money. He's going to continue to have his profile amplified. Now, by that question, are you asking whether or not he should care about his level of appeal or how it's going to come across to many of his detractors? He doesn't care about his detractors. He's meant to be a polarizing figure. He's meant to be an agent of chaos who's being sponsored by Nike and other culturally Marxist mega brands all across the world, not just by Nike. Colin Kaepernick's being sponsored by other forces deeper than Nike. Nike is just the front organization that is unabashed in their support of him. I stated a very long time ago, around the moments when Colin Kaepernick first decided that he was going to separate himself from the NFL and become this pseudo-martyr. I saw a segment, I believe it was on TMZ Sports, where it was stated that Ben Stiller had quote-unquote non-for-profit organizations who would be willing to bankroll Kaepernick as long as he would be willing to take expeditions into the Sudan when it was around that time of the Darfur storyline. So there are many factions that are willing to use him as a guinea pig, as a proxy, as an ambassador for them, as a pawn per se. And that's normally what happens when those in the know who and what he is. He's an asset, so he gets passed around. He gets told what to do. He gets sent orders. And Ness Nitty's job is just to make sure that he does not have any breakdowns.
Man, I am torn. I would say it's a bad look because of the road travel. Like, one, off top, I am happy for anybody that has their own signature shoe. Yep. If you're Marbury in China, to all the guys who've tried and some who have.
All of this is a costume. The afro, the all-black outfit, it's a costume. Let me rewind it back a little bit. As you can see here, anytime that you see the all-black, especially with public figures, that's a sign that they're a witch, that they either venerate Pan or they're Marxists, which means that they don't know who they're supposed to venerate. Marxists tend to believe that they're atheists, but they're really not. They're adherents to the Hegelian dialectic, and they also venerate Pan. Down the line, what you'll normally find out about Marxists is that they worship the mother goddess and that they worship Saturn. And it's just a process for them to get there. And that's part of the components of Masonry. You go through the levels until you're finally told that your God is Lucifer. I'm not saying that. Albert Pike said that in his book, Morals and Dogma. That once Masons get to a high enough level, they're told that their God is Lucifer. What is Lucifer? Lucifer is the quote-unquote great trinity of the horned god, the mother goddess, and their son, the divine hermaphrodite. Or what you might call today the Baphomet. That's all it's truly about. So, but once again, when we get to the epilogue, I'm just going to illustrate some things to you brothers so that you'll have a greater understanding of why the catchphrase for his new shoe line is called Rise for 7 or Stand with 7. That's not just talking about Kaepernick. That's talking about the mother goddess and the father god Saturn.
I'm a big supporter of the Triple B Big Baller brand. I am in support of someone doing that in free enterprise for profit. But when you use the cause to gain the popularity and the martyrdom.
Well, here's the problem with that, brother. And a lot of cats might not like me saying this, but the cause has yet to be defined. I'm not quite sure if so-called black people know what their cause is, because I don't think that most so-called black people know what their goal is when it comes to these racial discussions or these quote-unquote racial issues. Are you looking for equality? Are you looking for rulership? Are you looking to have authority over all of your funds and over all of the commercial aspects of the so-called black community? Are you looking to get a greater understanding of who you are? What exactly is the goal of the cause? We can't talk about the cause unless we talk about the goal. Once again, look at Kaepernick. He's a pop cultural figure. He has no idea what the hell is going on. That's why he got so nervous at the workout, at the quote-unquote workout, when the cameras came up to him and all those cameras were controlled by him, and he still looked nervous. He was so agitated and upset because he and Nike had coordinated to try to pimp out the NFL, and the NFL did not fall for it. So he got frustrated by the whole thing. He never wanted to come back to the NFL. If the league were to let him back in, that would be a bonus for him. But he's making so much money working with Nike to push and promote cultural Marxism and to try to further fragment this American society or American culture that's so easily fragmented anyway, because All of these components are not meant to be unified in the first place. So you bring in a Colin Kaepernick acting as an agent of chaos to agitate all sides involved, which is what he's done. Whose side is Colin Kaepernick truly on? He does not even know, because he's not open to communication. So how could you be a leader?
To one, resurrect your Nike deal, which was about to be off the table before this level of popularity.
It says true to 7 and then the Nike check. Sometimes it says rise for 7. Sometimes it says stand with 7. Sometimes it says true to 7. But that term or that credo or that motto, true to 7, brothers, is talking about the mother goddess. That Nike check is talking about the wings of the mother goddess, who's oftentimes associated with the concept of victory, war, or the moon, which is meant itself to denote enlightenment once you get to the crown chakra or the 7th chakra, or as they say in Kabbalah, the tree of life, the 10th Sephiroth. That's when you get that great understanding. The Shekinah hovers around you and it comes within you. That's why you'll hear so many of these Luciferian so-called black men talk about how the quote-unquote black woman is God. That's a concept that they get from ancient cultures that venerated the mother goddess component of the quote-unquote divine trinity that was likened unto the number 7, which of course represents completion or the ultimate understanding. Kabbalah, remember, is just the Jewish mystic version of the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system. In ancient Babylon, they worshiped the mother goddess in that same way as they did in ancient Greece, ancient Rome, Turkey, etc. Even in many of the quote-unquote New World cultures as well. There are certain concepts of the mother goddess that fit into that overall premise of the divine trinity, the Father God, the mother goddess, and their son. But once again, we'll be covering more of that in the epilogue. But it's all about Shekinah. Remember that Nike was founded by Phil Knight. And the name that Phil Knight originally wanted for Nike was Dimension 6, which was in reference to what? The planet Saturn. Every time you see Phil Knight, he's always dressed in all black because he's a Kabbalistic magician.
And then more importantly, use your workout that was supposed to be for skills instead of for marketing and profit, where he first introduced these shoes, to get to this. That's when I have an issue with it. Look, are all the proceeds going to the cause? Because the cause...
Of course not. Why would the proceeds go to the cause when black people have yet to truly define what the cause is? If you don't know what the goal is, you can't say what the cause is. So Colin Kaepernick has the right to pimp so-called black people because our people are very simple-minded. When you're simple-minded, you get pimped. You can't get upset. That's why you see a lot of these pro-blackity characters, they rise up every 5 to 7 years. And so-called black people, they start to trail right behind them because they love to be lied to. So-called black people are like a low-level chick who keeps chasing after the same type of low-level dude. You know why she does that? So that when she gets played, when she gets dumped, when she gets shitted on, she can always blame him and never herself. That's how our people are.
Certainly got you to the point where you have this signature shoe. Yeah, I need to have that answered. I need to know a lot more of the detail of what goes into this and
Well, Marcellus Wiley, they say the devil's in the details.
Comes from this to what got you in this position, which is the cause.
I say it's a good look because of what you just said. I kind of looked into it, and it's 2 retailers are going to donate a portion of the proceeds to 2 of the causes that he supports. And
allegedly.
Closed amounts.
Yeah, and so we I don't know the amount, and
you'll never know the amount. The amount is undisclosed because they're going to donate just enough so that they can have it given back to them as a tax write-off, as some type of generous donation. And Kaepernick will get to keep all of his money. When you see him make these appearances at these schools and these other locations in a very covert way, he gets prepped on what he's going to say. He doesn't have to spend any money. He's being bankrolled. You always have to ask yourself these type of questions. How could a revolutionary get backed by a major corporation, by a global corporation, unless they're actually just a pawn? What so-called black leader, real so-called black leader, gets bankrolled by major corporations?
he's in this position because he has people, obviously a ton of people that support him. That's why the shoes sold out as fast as they did. But if a portion of the proceeds are going to go to a cause that he supports, then of course it's a good look. he's not playing anymore. He has to be a businessman. He has to earn a living. And for that, I'm all for it. I think it's a great look.
I think it's a bad look. And I think it just further drives home the point of a selfish approach. Something that maybe didn't start off as being selfish. It was selfless to begin with, has now turned into a solidification of it's not about social injustices. It's about Kaepernick's agenda.
Well, the two might not be necessarily mutually exclusive. For example, you have another Nike asset in LeBron James, who every time he runs around, he's trying to act as if he's the big black Santa Claus. He's just giving away everything. Now his new thing is he's linked up with Lyft and he's going to help kids get on bikes. Supposedly he opened a school in Akron, Ohio. Now he has bikes for kids to ride on. What's actually going on is that LeBron James is desperate to become a billionaire. And whatever he has to do, he's going to do. And if along the truck to becoming a billionaire, he gets to act like a politician and market himself as the modern day Muhammad Ali, that's even better. Because now he can finally get that attention that he's always craving. That's what all of the Nike assets have in common, whether it's Kaepernick, LeBron James, Odell Beckham Jr., Serena Williams. They're all desperate for attention and validation, which tells me that they come from some very sullied environments where they don't feel right about themselves. They're always trying to prove something. They're always trying to show everything that they do. If LeBron James gives a nickel away to a homeless man, he has to film it and put it on Instagram. So that should show you right there that something is riding in Denmark with him. But just to get back to Kaepernick, this notion that Kaepernick started out his so-called protest with upright intentions is just nonsense. He was put under programming by his woman, who already understood that his mind had been fragmented from his childhood. Whatever family had raised him put him under the programming originally, and Ness Nitty had his keys. First, Ness Nitty was dealing with his already mentally fractured teammate Alden Smith, and after she broke him down, she moved over to Kaepernick. She already knew who she was gunning for.
Where the strategy with him and Nike has begun, where it starts, where it finishes. But no one likes to play a fool. You know, you might have liked Cleflo Dollar or a couple other people out there that have preached gospel and have created movement and have solicited funds and have sold a product.
Or have led lemmings to their demise by jumping over the cliff. So-called black people need to stop blaming quote-unquote pastors for them getting hustled. Our people like to get hustled. People, period, like to get hustled, especially by the Bible pimps in the church.
To further what it is that their agenda is, but I just look at this and it almost seems like you're exploiting the very thing that the purity of why you became such a polarizing figure and someone that represented hope. It just seems like there's too much of an agenda connected to what's going on now.
Yes, it's just a matter of understanding what the agenda is. They have to maintain his notoriety by any means necessary. He's not going to stay famous through the NFL anymore. He's not the most loquacious individual. So yes, they have to start an apparel line. And they know that the market is large enough that the apparel line will do well. Now, do I believe that his sneaker is so popular that it's sold out in one day and all that bullshit? No, I do not. I believe that Nike probably bought a good amount of those shoes and whatever else they were trying to distribute with his likeness on it. That's how these mega corporations do. There was a cat who asked me in an email about Disney. Supposedly, Disney was buying up a lot of the tickets for their latest Star Wars film. Yes, they do that. That's happened in the entertainment industry for many years. For cats who go back far enough, you remember back in the day, back in the mid to late 90s, a lot of major record companies, when they were trying to promote an artist, they would release the CDs or release the albums per se, and they would go out and buy a lot of the albums so that they could say so-and-so finished number 3 in record sales in their first week. They're a tremendous debut artist. Why were they doing that? Because that artist was a witch who had agreed to many of the rituals. They were submissive. So in return, the record company guaranteed them that they were going to get quote-unquote promotion. That's all promotion is about. It's how servile the asset is, whether it be a musician, an athlete, or what have you. You get promoted based on your civility and your willingness to submit to the rituals. That's it. Kaepernick is an asset.
The whole thing, I think it's a bad look. I can't stand it. I can't stand I'm fighting the power, but I'm doing it on behalf of Nike, one of the largest global corporations on the planet.
Because once again, Jason Whitlock, he's not fighting the real power. He does not even know the power that he's supposed to be fighting. It's all shtick. He's an actor. I have news for you brothers out there. 99% of people on the planet Earth are nothing but actors. It's just that a lot of them don't know it. How many people out here are just playing a role? They're just saying what they feel like they need to say. They're dressing how they feel like they should dress, whether it be for attention or acceptance or what have you. Kaepernick, on a two-dimensional level, he just wants to be accepted. He's quote-unquote mixed race. He does not know where he belongs. Now, on a deeper level, he's under the programming. So he must do the bidding of his handlers and of his sponsors. Nike is a global, culturally Marxist bastion. Their job is to promote chaos and anarchy as much as possible and reap the new order. That being the increase of their sales, the amplifying of their brand, the opening of new markets. As long as it makes dollars, it makes sense.
Nike is worth twice the amount of the NBA and the NFL combined. Mm-hmm. They generate far more money than the NFL and NBA. They are a global entity.
And beyond that, the NFL does not have sweatshops. Cats have the nerve to say that the NFL is treating these NFL players like slaves. Really? They're getting treated like slaves, making no less than six figures? What's Nike doing over in Southeast Asia?
That profits off of slave labor in Asia.
Ding.
Where's that?
And Colin Kaepernick, again, is fighting the power on behalf of Nike. Nike's bigger than the NFL.
He's not fighting the power, though, Jason Whitlock. A lot of you brothers have to wake up to the three-dimensional aspect of these storylines. It's right in front of your face. The company is called Nike, or really Nikkei. That is the mother goddess. Before the company was named Nike or Nikkei, they wanted to name the company Dimension 6. As a matter of fact, Phil Knight said that the options were going to be Dimension 6, Falcon, or something else. And we know the term Falcon is an allusion to what? Horus or Heru. So it was always going to be Luciferian in an aspect or in origin. And that's what all these mega corporations are about. Behind the scenes, they have a very intense understanding of the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system, or as people call it today, the Greco-Roman pantheon of gods. The only reason why they attribute it to Greece and Rome is because the Caucasian likes to claim that that's where they come from, or that's where their origins are. Don't get it twisted, a large portion of the Greco-Roman Empire was Caucasian in leadership. But those quote-unquote pantheon of gods and the rituals that were practiced in those realms were just mimicry of what was going on in ancient Kemet and in ancient Babylon and in other ancient indigenous or aboriginal cultures who had the same gods, quote-unquote gods, and things of the like. A lot of times you'll see these athletes today, they're walking around with the six-pointed star and things of that sort, and cats will say, oh, they must know certain things, or they must be in deep study. No, a lot of those cats are Kabbalists. A lot of these top shelf athletes are into the Kabbalah. And they understand the concepts revolving around the cube of Saturn and Baal and Astarte and the necessity of the quote unquote blood sacrifice to grant them more power, or the sex rituals / sex magic that they believe are going to grant them or give them greater standing in the entertainment industry. There are reasons why they do these things, because they adhere to them, they believe in them. That's why they call it the Force. The power of witchcraft is known as the Force. That's also a term that's used pertaining to the Kabbalistic tree of life. As you ascend up the levels, you get a greater understanding of these things.
Than the NBA, and somehow people are being sold the belief that he's fighting the power. He's working on behalf of the power at its highest level by branding himself as some kind of freedom fighter for justice and equality when all he really is a brand.
And a Marxist. Once again, brother, behind all of this, Kaepernick worships the mother goddess. And that is the new deity for the masses. I've stated this in many other videos. For the masses, they want you to worship the mother goddess. Behind the curtain, that's where they worship the horned god, aka the father god. And through the mainstream media, they try to promote transgenderism and being a transvestite because that's the way to honor their quote-unquote divine child, who's known in various cultures as Harpocrates or Heru or Cupid or Hermaphroditus or Attis, etc. It all goes back to the ancient world. There's nothing new under the sun. So a lot of these brothers, they hit this conundrum of not being able to figure out exactly why certain things are going on because they don't quite have the spiritual knowledge base. All they can do is try to make deductions based on the empirical data that's placed in front of them and their ability to assess according to their worldly understanding. But the spiritual is where you get the true understanding of everything going on.
And again, why I think it's a bad look, I think any other athlete that perhaps authentically wants to take a stand for some cause that's controversial and polarizing will now look just like another Colin Kaepernick.
Right, but I think that Kaepernick and LeBron James have already shown that they don't care how they look. They're getting so much money from Nike and from these other endorsements, they don't care how they look. LeBron James is still going to talk about quote-unquote social issues despite the fact that he was proven to be a hypocrite with that whole China fiasco. It's just a matter of time, especially if he's fortunate enough to win a championship. You're going to see him start rambling and running off at the mouth about social justice issues again. Because once again, that is how he's building his brand. He can't do it through sneakers because Michael Jordan got to be a multi-billionaire through sneakers and through apparel. LeBron knows that he doesn't sell enough sneakers to ever get to be a billionaire just through that. So he has to be more creative with it.
I've said it from the outset and I stand on it. It's always been about building a brand for Colin Kaepernick. That dude was...
Well, no, not quite. It's always been about using Colin Kaepernick to promote certain culturally Marxist ideologies to the masses. Cultural Marxism is just a rather mundane way of saying Luciferianism, because Luciferianism is just too heavy for people to grasp. Most people out here today do not truly believe in the concept of God anymore. So if you use the term Luciferianism, it's like, huh? What are you talking about? Wicca is Luciferianism. Hermeticism is Luciferianism. These major religions are just watered down versions of Luciferianism. That's all they are. So most of these people are caught up in the same web. They're just stuck on different portions of the web. And that's why cats, they just don't get it a lot of times. But Kaepernick it really wasn't just about him getting attention or anything like that. They know what they're doing with Kaepernick. They're going to play this thing out all the way to the hilt and see where it goes. And when he's no longer useful, or if he starts to break programming, they're just going to remove him.
His happiest when he was making Beats by Dre commercials and he was the coolest thing going in football. And then once he lost his job and became a second or third tier quarterback in the NFL, he threw a tantrum and then it spiraled into this whole, I'm going to build a brand as a martyr. And now he's playing it to the bus.
Also understand that Kaepernick started to have his breakdown around the age of 30, which is normally when MK assets start to break down. And it becomes very easy to reprogram them. Basically, it's almost like a phone. When your phone has a virus and the virus cannot be cleaned and they have to reset it to factory settings and it has to be totally reprogrammed, there are certain programmers / handlers who have that ability. Ness Nitty was able to tap into certain triggers. That's why, once again, this person claims to be for so-called black people. You don't even see him on pro-blackity shows where they're going to ask him vanilla questions. They won't even put him on those shows. Notice that. It's not even like, okay, how come Kaepernick won't go on the CBS Morning News or Fox News or Nightline or some shit? He won't even go on the pro-blackity channels and websites and pages on the internet, on social media that will support him ardently and bow down to him. So that shows that they just don't want to mess up a good thing right now. Kaepernick is like the Wizard of Oz. He's doing a lot of miracles behind the curtain, and they don't want people to find out what's really going on back there.
Tap dancing for Nike. It's bad luck.
It's a disingenuous road. Disingenuous road. Things come to mind like, oh, now I know why you were dead set on filming and televising that workout to the world. Nike probably had them strings say, hey, man, we got these shoes that you're going to wear at this.
Ding. These shoes did not just come out from nowhere, brothers. They've been planning these shoes probably for the last year or so. Why do you think the story came out last July 4th that Colin Kaepernick was against the Betsy Ross Nike Airs? That came out so that they could release these shoes. So they were planning this from probably 2018 or something like that. They said, we're going to release the story that Colin Kaepernick is against the Betsy Ross Nike Air sneakers so that we can reinforce this nonsense about him being against slavery and all this other buffoonery. And then later on in the year, we're going to release the Air Wokes. And whenever you see, once again, that color scheme of black and white, it signifies the bringing together of opposites, what are known as hermetic principles.
Workout that's going to be part of this launch campaign. Be dead set on making sure that that's part of this marketing, not for skills, but for brand. One, that makes me think. I question it, Kaepernick. You can holler back at me if you got a different answer.
That man ain't going to holler at you. He's somewhere tied in the basement with Ness Nitty putting out cryptic texts and tweets and messages on Instagram acting like she's him logged into his account.
All the missed opportunities, messed up opportunities, tweets, racist owners, blah, blah, blah. Players Coalition saying, why is Kaepernick so difficult? All I say is the Players Coalition was able to extract $90 million from the owners. I wonder if these shoes going to be able to do it. Because if it's about, like you...
Oh, no, the shoes are going to extract a lot more than that. It's just most of it's going to go into his pocket. Well, I shouldn't even say that. Most of it's going to go into Nike's pocket, and he'll get a little stipend.
Some of the proceeds going to the cause. The Players Coalition was sitting there saying, we got $90 million directly for the cause. Why would you not take that? I know why you won't.
Well, remember, the pro-blackities got mad because, and I mentioned this in another video, they thought that the owners were supposed to give them a fresh $90 million. The owners were supposed to go into their pockets and give $90 million for to stop the quote-unquote oppression in the black community. That's how stupid a lot of these dudes are. Nobody will ever respect you if you think that a handout from the same entity that you claim is your oppressor is going to solve all your problems. It's like telling the person who molested you as a child, well, if you marry me, it'll make it all better, what you did to me when I was a kid. It just sounds stupid. But it's because, once again, the so-called black man does not want to accept that he is the master. He's the one who's going to have to solve his own problems. Our problems will never be appeased by handouts from the so-called white man or by looking to them for validation, a hug, or what have you. It's never going to happen.
About you. It's about you flipping the cause to coin for your own self-gain while you're going out there and patronizing everyone's sensibilities because everyone is going to be endeared by the cause. So I just look at the whole situation, man, and just see fraud about a lot of the elements. And when he has no response to that, I get tired of people defending someone who won't even defend themselves.
Marcellus Wiley, that's because our people are desperate for characters. The whole world is a stage. Colin Kaepernick and the image that was pushed about him is an exciting character. I said the same thing about the film Black Panther. You had the character who was played by Michael B. Jordan. A lot of the pro-blackities were obsessed with that character of Killmonger. And I stated in my review of the film, the reason why pro-blackities love Killmonger so much is because he represented on screen what they wish they were. He had the courage to actually start a real revolution, which most pro-blackities will never do, because at the end of the day, most pro-blackities are like RoboCop. RoboCop had 3 prime directives and a 4th hidden directive, that being that he was not allowed to assault an executive at OCP. The proverbial executive of OCP here in America is the so-called white man. Yes, niggas will burn down their own neighborhoods when they riot and things of that nature. And yes, they might get violent with certain white people. But they don't want all white people to go away because the so-called white man has become their proverbial daddy. Why do you think our people throw tantrums over Trump? Trump represents a step back from that quote unquote divine unification of black and white. That's why they push the antipathy of black and white here in America, because they're playing out hermetic principles through the media. Everything is about Kabbalah.
Finance a presidential election.
No, you couldn't.
Why not? It could get you going. It could get you going.
Not finance.
Oh yeah,
You're
you're
spending
talking
billions of dollars to be president.
and they could probably approach with Nike being a part of what Kaepernick is doing. You could probably approach the numbers that could finance a presidential race.
Yeah.
So
Right, but brother, what are you really saying? Are you saying that with the money that Kaepernick and Nike are going to make from the sales of these sneakers, they could possibly financially back another quote-unquote black president? Like, I'm not quite understanding. I think I understand where you're coming from, but I've said this also. The game of politics is based in understanding what a politician is. You don't work for the politician. The politician's supposed to work for you. So-called black people, they have their understanding inverted. They look at politicians as savior figures. Actually, we're supposed to raise a politician up from their youth to understand what they're supposed to represent for us. We're not supposed to wait for some magical, mystical politician to pop up out of nowhere and say that's the person who's going to help us. That's why people always get disappointed by politicians or politricks, as I call it. Because those people who get into the White House or into other governmental offices, they have to make sure that the overall train keeps rolling. If they don't grasp that, they get popped or they get removed from office.
talking about putting some money here in this community center, saying this, we'll put a couple dollars here, we'll donate. No, if you're talking about you truly a freedom fighter and you working with a company that makes and generates the type of money that Nike generates, show us. I want to see who y'all putting in and putting out there to go on Capitol Hill. Who's going to go into the nation's capital?
Right, but brother, you have to understand, he's an anarchist. He doesn't believe in working through the government at all. So it's very similar. The Kaepernick dynamic is very similar to the liberal black woman. The liberal black woman sits at this nexus in the middle of three factions. That being her people, the quote-unquote black race, the globalist aspect, that being her love for everyone, international entities and the homosexual, lesbian, transgender movement, and other Luciferian components of this society that she adores so much, the government, the school system. The so-called black woman loves it all. Don't let her fool you with her nonsense. And then, of course, the last little branch that she sits apart from and that she dabbles in is her primary altar, that being the feminist aspect. And they do and are willing to work with the white woman before they work with you, so-called black man. Don't get that twisted. That's their preference. Their preference is feminism over the racial aspect. But my point being is that the liberal black woman, she dwells in this nexus between those three forces. Kaepernick is the same. Kaepernick, he gets to talk about race, but you never really see him associate himself with any quote-unquote conscious groups or black groups or anything like that. He gets to talk about government and the system, but he doesn't deal with any politicians. He talks about the police, but he doesn't deal with the police and the changing of their protocols. He just likes to use a lot of inflammatory language because it keeps him relevant. And he's not the first person to do this. A lot of so-called activists have done this. That's why I always tell you, brothers, all an activist is someone with a big mouth and no plan.
Talking about all of these social injustices. When I start seeing that intensity connected to that, with the dollar connected to it, then I'm okay with it.
That's not going to
But it's a hustle. This is a hustle.
When he started this,
This is a hustle.
and he probably won't admit it, he didn't understand the magnitude and the gravity of where it was going.
Right, but TJ Husmanzada, he didn't have to understand it, because when he first decided, quote unquote decided, that he was going to sit down for the national anthem, that was the initiation of the theatrical play that he was going to be a part of. He was going to be the lead in. And of course, they introduced the secondary character of Nate Boyer, who of course gave Kaepernick his secondary instructions. But we did not find out for a very long time that it was Ness Nitty who was pulling the strings. And it took a lot of other people much longer to figure this out when it came to him. And I think that people are getting closer to grasping exactly what her place is in this whole thing. But this notion that Kaepernick had no idea what was going to happen. No, he knew that he was going to be preserved to some degree because he had to play out this ritual in public in front of everyone to try to destabilize the NFL. Once again, they want the NFL to be woke like the NBA. The NFL is a major manifestation of masculinity, and they're trying to attack the masculine principle in these last days in this Babylonian society. Anything that's remotely masculine, they have to attack it. That's why, what are you hearing about in the build up to the Super Bowl? The 49ers and their lesbian coach. Like, why are we looking at this person for? This is a person with a psychological disorder, a psychological issue. She wishes that she was a professional football player. In other words, she wishes not only that she was a man, but that she was a big, strong man. She needs psychological help. But in this society, they tell people with psychological issues that you're free now. You understand? So we're basically living in a quote unquote world of zombies. People who are walking around, but they're the undead. They have no real spirit. They have no living spirit.
It's unplanned, obviously.
Yeah.
But when you give your own money, which he did, and I'm assuming this is not going to be a lot of money that's being donated.
Right.
But he's doing something in...
Right, but what does that mean? That's like the dudes who run around the internet talking about, but what are you doing for the black community? The best thing that you can do for your own community is start with yourself and work your way down. If we started asking real questions like, what am I doing for my children? And what did my father do for me? You'd be amazed. By the time you answer those two questions, the vast majority of the problems that we have will be solved. I promise you that. All this nonsense about worrying about who's starting fundraisers and foundations and trying to act like a public figure and a savior for the whole quote-unquote black community is nonsense and it's folly. Worry about being the best person that you can be. Worry about making sure that you're doing the best for your children and that your father's doing the best for you, or that he did the best for you, and you could use him as an example and go from there. That's why they're trying to destroy the link between father and son here in America. I'll be doing a video about that soon too, because there was a super liberal black columnist, black female columnist, who wrote an article in the New York Times basically saying that the two-parent home and the necessity for it is a myth. And that's just, once again, another attack on the so-called black man.
That's, you can't...
CJ, I hate the standard of, well, he's doing something. Because that's a very low bar.
No.
Agreed.
We have a very low bar of what we ask.
But there's a lot of people that aren't doing anything.
Well, there are a lot of people who might not have the means to do things as you see, quote unquote, doing something. Because so-called black people, they look at money as the solution for all their problems. The scriptures tell us that money answers all things, but it does not solve all your problems.
The support.
But there's a lot
that's
of
why as a support.
But again, there's a lot of people incapable of making that kind of huge impact.
True.
Because again, all you can really do is start with the man in the mirror and control your actions and your behavior. And I give all praise to any individual, no matter how poor or wealthy, that's doing what they can individually. But when you become wealthy, in my opinion, to whom much is given, much is expected. This dude is wealthy, has a large platform.
I wouldn't call him wealthy. I would say that he has a bit of change. Wealthy to me is when you get into the 9-figure range. I'm not even quite sure how rich he is, because remember, he's living up under his woman. I'm pretty sure that his finances go through his woman.
Standard has to be higher. Well, he's doing something. Well, you know what? My little cousin Josh, that's a nice standard
So
for
you're
him.
saying
But
you should do more than what you benefit from it.
If that's what you're basing it off of.
No, I'm asking.
If you're basing what you're doing off of the thought process and the ideology of what it is that he has built he did not build this reputation, this brand off of being a football player, Super Bowl champ or MVP. He's built it off of a Trayvon Martin, off of a Mike Brown. He's built it off of tragic situations that...
In other words, he's a quote unquote tragedy culture vulture. which is something that we also see from the liberal black woman. They love talking about race and speaking about the things that befall the so-called black man and his interactions with the police, when the fact of the matter is that the number one problem in the so-called black community when it comes to deaths is abortion. But nobody could talk about that because it means that the liberal black woman would have to get taken to task. And if that day ever comes, you know what she's going to do? She's going to hide behind her God, the liberal white woman.
Happen between interactions with the police and regular pedestrian civilians walking around. If you are basing what you're able to do off of that belief, and it's a foolish following, I think that's super dangerous. Nobody likes playing the fool. So if I am generating these sales off of this product, then yes, just like the church, if you paying your tithe and I'm coming to church and I'm coming for Jesus and I'm going to give this 10th because I go to church, but I see you pulling up in a 55, an AMG kit, and that all your kids look good, hair is cut, but my hair is undone, my kid's hair is undone, but I'm sitting in this pew trying to get Jesus. You got to justify what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. And I think that this is the situation that Colin Kaepernick has found himself in.
Yeah, man, he put himself in this position because of his voice, because of his platform, for his election to be this poster child for the cause. So when that comes to play, the responsibility is great. I got a couple things to say. One, no matter who you are, you can give. It's called the 3 T's: time, talent, treasure. You figure out what you have. Everyone has one of those 3.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that, sir. The problem is that most of our people think on a 2-dimensional level, and they only view monetary contribution as something that's valid. They don't view intellectual contribution as something that's valid, or time as something that's valid. That's a major problem in the so-called black community.
Figure that out, 1. 2, I get tired of the whole narrative of police brutality is what's destroying our community. At most, by the numbers, you can say it's the 6th leading cause of us.
At best, it's probably somewhere around 15. If you truly were to say, you know, we're going to make a list of the biggest problems in the so-called black community, I promise you that if you know what you're talking about, by the time you get to police brutality, it's somewhere in between 11 to 15.
And they say that's even the stretch. But you know what top 5 is? Accidental deaths, including drownings, heart disease, cancer, homicide, and you talk about suicide.
And number 1 is abortion, but nobody wants to talk about that.
And we pick tops. We skip top 5, go to 6, so we can sell something.
Ding. Because that's how you get the most attention. All over social media, these woke niggas, they love talking about police brutality because that's how they get subscribers. That's what I mean when I say, to a degree, the woke angle is lucrative to a degree because they know it's almost like the slogan of, as long as I owe you, you'll never be broke. As long as there are these racial issues, these woke niggas will always have something to bitch and complain about. And the people who love to bitch and complain will always listen to them, thereby amplifying their profile.
Selling something that is agitating not only those who we encounter in the police force, which a lot of them are us, but more importantly, it puts our emotional state in a place of trigger so that we go out there, we that close to the edge because we believe in the ghost in that blue uniform.
Absolutely.
I just get mad when all of that culminates into you putting out some damn shoes and saying, what, am I safer in the streets?
Do you think he thought, but do you
am I
think he
safer
thought
in the streets?
when
I
it
don't care
started,
what
I'm
you
going to put
think.
shoes out?
Oh, no.
Like
Am I safer in the streets with a Kaepernick shoe?
But there's still an agenda. That's the thing about
that's
it.
the thing.
TJ.
It's called,
There's an agenda attached to that.
We're out of time, TJ, but here's what I think. And I said this at the outset. At the very beginning of this, it was always about Kaepernick.
Well, I have to disagree with that for a moment, brother. If you want to say at the very beginning of this, it was about utilizing Kaepernick as a pawn, I'd say yes. But beyond that, I would say that at the very beginning of this, they were going to use Kaepernick in any way, shape, or form to try to force cultural Marxism within the NFL. And there were other forces that already knew that if things started to go left, we're going to swoop Kaepernick up and maintain his relevance in however many ways, whether it be through commercials or advertisements. clothing lines, etc. But they already knew what phase 2 and phase 3 were going to be. It's like when you went to go watch Marvel's early movies, Iron Man and Thor and all those other things. They knew that they were going to build it up to Avengers and then phase 2 and phase 3, so on and so forth. They knew what they were going to do with Kaepernick. Kaepernick's job was to bring entropy, to bring anarchy, and he does a very good job of it.
And so whatever spawns out of that, and what has is the shoe deal. And again, that's still all about Kaepernick. Did he know it was going to lead to a shoe deal? No. Did he think it was going to?
I knew that it was going to lead to a shoe deal. So he had to have some inkling.
To something good for Kaepernick and his brand and being a celebrity and being able to profit off of being this martyr who allegedly stood up for his people. Yes, he did. I don't like it or respect it.
But anyway, that's basically it on that, brothers. As I've already stated, what this entire narrative or this turn or this development in the storyline is actually about is just a very surreptitious confession of who Kaepernick represents. He represents a gateway to the veneration of the quote-unquote divine trinity, as the Luciferians call it, that being the horn god, Saturn or Kronos, the mother goddess, Isis or Aset or Hathor, and the divine hermaphrodite. But I'm going to delve into that in the epilogue, or maybe I'll just do a part 2 to this video. So peace.